What is up, guys? Doing another one down tips video. Today we're going to be talking about picking your weapons. So you've made your build, you've picked your perk deck, you've made your build around it, so you either made an armor build or you've made a dodge build, hopefully surrounding either armor, rogue, or kingpin if you're trying to, start taking one down pretty seriously. I mean, of course you can pick the other perk decks, but I discuss all that in my other video. Anyway, let's just assume you've already got your build kind of made and you've got your perks made, and you're trying to figure out what weapons to bring. Well, we'll just assume that, well, you know what, we're not going to assume anything. I'm just going to try to hit all the bases I possibly can. We're going to talk about the weapons I think are most useful on one down, and we'll kind of go from there. Alright, so starting off, weapons that are DMRs. DMRs are high damage weapons that you can modify regular assault rifles into DMR kits with the right DLC packs. Certain things come, or certain true DMRs come with DLC and some are in base game. A perfect case of a DMR in base game would be something like the M308. Another DMR that's really good is the Cavity. Typically what you're looking for in a DMR is something with alright total ammo, a halfway decent rate of fire. The damage is something that you're looking for, usually in the 150 plus, or usually maybe like 160 plus area. Like this Car 4 modded for a DMR kit actually pushes 216 with like 100 accuracy and 40 stability and so on and so forth. This M308 hits about 170 damage, has 100 accuracy, and so on and so forth. What are some other good DMRs? I like DMR 762, again, like 170 damage. You can mod it for good accuracy and so on and so forth. Of course, this is at the cost of concealment. If you're wanting to use like concealed stuff, something like a Cavity has a pretty high concealment, and you can also mod Car 4 DMRs to do to still have pretty high concealment. This Car 4, for example, getting up to about 215. Oh, I forgot that this damage is being modified by my Silent Killer skills, so the Car 4s that are doing like over 200 damage, that's being augmented by my suppressors. Regardless. So looking at DMRs, DMRs are pretty good. If you notice, I have extended weapon stats because I do like to know a bit more about the weapons. Particularly, I like to look at the partial, full reloads, full reloads. Equip delays really aren't that important. Ammo pickup is probably the most important though. So if you look here at the Cavity has an ammo pickup range from 0.89 to 3.12. Basically what that rounds off to is you're roughly going to be picking up 1 to 3 ammo per ammo drop for every enemy that you kill with the Cavity. This is unaugmented from fully loaded or anything like that. So then if we go over to the Car 4, we see that the ammo pickup rate ranges from 2.25 up to 4.13. These pickup rates are things that you don't have to have this mod to look at. If you get on the PD2 tools that I mentioned, it'll allow you to see the extended stats of all the weapons, so you can see their ammo pickup rate, just in case you're curious. Or you can just kind of play around with the weapons and see which ones have better pickup rates and so on and so forth. So DMRs that you're probably going to pay more attention to than others, particularly going to be the Car 4 because it has good ammo pickup, the Cavity because it has good ammo pickup. The M308, yeah, its ammo pickup's about the same as the Cavity, so I'd say it's pretty alright. I believe the standard AK modded for DMR is actually pretty good. Oh, I think it's this one. Yeah, it gets about the same pickup as the Car 4, about 2 to 4, which is pretty good. Pretty good for an AMR. Now something like, for a DMR, I was looking at the AMR when I said that, sorry. Now something like the AMR wouldn't be nearly as desirable, because even though it's it's modded as a DMR kit, and it gets the damage, and it has the accuracy, even has good rate of fire, and all that good stuff, the ammo pickup is severely hurting in comparison to some of these other assault rifles that I've talked about. So instead of picking up like, 2 to 4 or 1 to 3, you're getting maybe 1 to 2. So you have to pay attention to little things like that. If you can use it and you can keep it sustained throughout a heist, that's good. But if you're trying to be self-sustaining off of ammo pickups, it's important to pay attention to something like that. So DMR kits, certain ones can be good. You can conceal them if you need to for dodge builds and so forth. So pretty good. Oh, speaking of DMRs, Little Friend Assault Rifle has pretty bad ammo pickup, but it has a grenade launcher built into it. So that has its pros and cons. So I think the Little Friend Assault Rifle's pretty good on one down damage-wise, because it allows you to take a third weapon that might be a little more ammo efficient that you could use for killing things once you run out of ammo in the DMR portion of the little friend. But that's kind of a special case. Moving on to other primary weapons, you also have shotguns. Shotguns you can either have with Dragon's Breath rounds or not, particularly for Dragon's Breath rounds, which are primarily used for stunning and killing weaker units. And of course, like I said, the stunning, you don't have to just stun the weaker units, you can stun other units as well, aside from medics. The Dragon's Breath rounds will also poke through shields, so they're good for utility like that. Excuse me. With proper shotgun skills, pretty much every shotgun can be useful. Of course, again, you want to pay attention to things like pickup rate. If you're using something like the Yzma, and you mod it for concealment, and you want to get crits, it's actually really good for one down, has an excellent ammo pickup rate. So even though you'd be pumping a lot of bullets into enemies, as long as you're, getting crits or what have you, you'll actually be able to be pretty well ammo sustained using the Yzma and things like that. These are something you'll have to play around with, kind of get a feel for. Things to look out for, of course. I would say the Yzma and the Stakeout are really good with shotgun skills and silent, like suppressor skills and so on like that, to boost their damage up to appropriate levels. And like I said, using the utilities of Dragon's Breath rounds are really nice. HE rounds don't really have much of a place anymore because, they do, but at the same time they don't. I prefer using the Dragon's Breath rounds because of the stunning capabilities. HE is nice because it, tosses enemies aside, but, I guess it just depends on how ammo efficient your shotgun is. Okay, so moving on. Oh, of course. Grenade launchers, both primaries and secondaries, are really good. Ridiculous damage output, splash radius damage, or splash damage, whatever. And they generally all have a good pickup rate. The only one that I wouldn't necessarily recommend is the Piglet, just because of its atrocious reload time. But if you can, find the time to hunker in a corner and reload it, even the Piglet can be a pretty good tool. Of course, in that same vein, we also have the archery weaponry, so things like the Planesrider bows, crossbows, so on and so forth. I'm sure, roughly around when One Down first came out, using a build that consisted of a grenade launcher and some sort of crossbow was pretty much the quote-unquote meta thing to do when One Down first came out, due to their absurd damage that they do. And they do. The light crossbow is probably my preferred weapon amongst the archery weapons to use. With its 750 damage, it'll one-shot any enemy unit in the head and kill it, except for bulldozers, which of course you'll want to break the faceplate on. If you're pairing it with a grenade launcher, you can use the grenade launcher to clear out clusters of enemies, and then use the crossbow for more accurate things. So the crossbow is good. It forces you to move in and out of cover a lot because of you're having to reload, which then in turn actually puts you in safer positions a lot more, just by the nature of how you have to use the weapon. However, if you're just trying to kill things fast, the crossbows themselves and the bows aren't necessarily all that great. I forgot to mention different ammo types for the grenade launchers, I'm sorry. Incendiary grenades in the grenade launchers are good for holding out choke points, like if you're doing a heist like rats. Trying to put a bunch of fire at the base of the stairs to keep enemies from just charging up is a pretty good tactic, but you'll kind of have to be careful. Generally, regular explosive rounds are better than the incendiary rounds, but they do have their place. As you can see, I do have some explosive variants of these things, and I also have poison variants. Poison is good in the vein that you don't actually have to hit the enemies in the head. You can just get them with a body shot, and then the poison will kill them due to the absurd amount of poison damage that these weapons do. Explosives can also be useful, like if you're just wanting this to, if for whatever reason you wanted to use like the explosive heavy crossbow as opposed to using a grenade launcher. These, with its damage, as you can see here, it's like 1400 damage. This will one-shot a shield in the front of the shield. However, of course, I would always say bring a grenade launcher as opposed to an explosive crossbow, but I mean, you could do it. There's definitely nothing wrong there. Now with the explosive bow, and I believe, and the explosive light bow, these won't one-hit a shield unless you get a crit. If you have crits, so just be wary of that. But the explosive heavy and the explosive longbow will both one-shot shields from the front, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I've played around with them. And then akimbos have their place. Akimbo deagles, you know, you have to play very carefully with your ammo, and you have to, you know, pick up all the appropriate skills for pistols or SMGs or whatever it is you're using. Typically, crits are a good thing to pick up for akimbos, just to kind of boost their damage a little bit. It's good DPS, but you can also run the ammo dry if you're not careful. Snipers are another excellent alternative. Of course, their armor piercing, able to go through shields, things like that. Things that are in like the platypus's range of damage will automatically be able to like one-shot shields and other, like the other standard black SWAT units on one down in the head. They won't be able to for like medics and tasers. Their breakpoint isn't nearly, these don't hit that damage cap. But so things like the platypus, the Nagant, the Desert Fox, and a few others are able to hit those damage values pretty nicely. Oh, and the Grom as well. And as a bonus, the Grom is highly concealable, so you can use it for a dodge build without having to ace Sneaky Bastard and Low Blow in order to use it super effective, to get the full amount of like crits and dodge out of your build. Of course, the Thanatos always sticks out because of its crazy amount of damage, so the Thanatos is always an option. It's very good for utility. It's very good for utility and also just taking out general units. So, personally, one of my favorites to use is the Contractor because of its rate of fire, and because once you put suppressor skills on it, you're able to get it past the damage breakpoint where you can shoot heads in the shields, or shoot shields in the head through the shield and kill them. And it acts like a DMR, and it has really good ammo pickup for a sniper rifle. The Contractor is definitely one I recommend, and it is the one that I'm using on this build in particular. I think I covered all the bases. The DMRs, the bows, shotguns lightly. Oh, you can also do my crazy minigun build with crits. That one's fun. Flamethrowers are actually pretty good for stunning, but they're crap on ammo, so you'll just have to be wary of that if you decide to use those. Saws for utility, of course. I haven't actually played with the either of the double barrels on one down. I don't know if the two shots is a big hindrance. I imagine it would be similar to the crossbows in the sense that the damage output would be enough that if you had like shotgun skills and so on and so forth, you could probably do a lot of damage to units, but only like a few units at a time before you'd have to duck into cover and reload. But it might be good due to the fact that it would force you to tactically reload a lot. But like I said, I haven't played with them on one down, so I might test that in the future. Alright, so now we'll go to secondary weapons. Okay, so of course you have pistols. Aren't many pistols that really stick out. The ones that stick out more than others are things like with high damage, such as the Deagle, the Baby Deagle. Where are they at? Okay, there they are. The Baby Deagle, but more so than any others, the Bronco. Oh, I forgot about the 5.7 and the Broomstick. I keep forgetting about all these. And the Madiver to an extent as well. Of course, the Madiver is just a slightly inferior version of the Bronco, used more for style than anything else. Oh, the White Streak is also a free alternative. Or is it a free alternative? I don't remember. Pretty sure it is. Yeah, I think it's a free alternative to the Beagle. But Bronco's base game is probably the best out of the bunch, if you ask me. The 5.7 is able to pierce through shields. Doesn't have an astonishing ammo pickup from 0.3 to 0.9, so at most you're going to be picking up like one ammo off of a pickup. But if you use it as a utility weapon as opposed to something that you use just to kill units, so you pick it up to, like you have a DMR primary and then this as a secondary in order to like clean up shields, it's pretty effective at that. The Broomstick can reach Bronco levels of damage if you modify it appropriately. This one in particular is not modded to get up to Bronco levels of damage, but I do know that the Broomstick is pretty popular right now because of the buffs that it got recently. The Bronco, of course, can get up to 33 concealment with the appropriate mods, so it's really good for crit builds if you're also looking to use a pistol. It's good for killing standard enemy units and for busting up bulldozer faceplates. You can usually get the bulldozer faceplates off in a magazine, or to my experience you can. So high damage pistols, particularly the revolvers and the Broomstick and the 5.7 are pretty good. Oh, you can also use the Strike. I've played with that a little bit, and I have a friend who plays with it a bit. The Strike's pretty fun. Again, looking at shotguns, the Judge doesn't nearly have enough ammo efficiency in order to be a really potential killing tool on one down. If it had a better ammo pickup rate, I definitely would use it more. But simply due to the fact that it can't sustain itself with ammo very effectively, I don't use it as a main killing tool. The GSPS is going to be really similar to the Locomotive. Yeah, the talk is going to be the same for shotguns as it was just a minute or so ago. The light crossbows, a bit less effective than their primary counterparts, but they could still be useful in certain circumstances. A thing to note about the explosive bolts for crossbows, not just the light crossbows, or not the light crossbows, not the pistol crossbows, but also the primary crossbows, is the fact that if you use explosive bolts, you can't pick those back up, whereas with the other bolts you can. You can run around and pick it back up and effectively have unlimited ammo. So, there's that. Okay, on to SMGs. For SMGs, of course, if you're using something like body expertise, these are going to be useful. I pair SMGs, like highly concealed SMGs, with a high rate of fire in my contractor build, the one that I'm using currently, so that I can bust dozer face plates and also put out a lot of bullets really quickly in the hopes that some of them turn into crits. So I like the micro Uzi for style purposes more than anything else, and just because it has an insane rate of fire, has a really good ammo pickup, and amongst other things. As far as being standard killing tools, you kind of have to be kind of sparing with them. I view it more as a backup weapon as opposed to a primary killing tool. If it's ammo efficient enough, possibly, if you could get it to a high enough damage, maybe. So maybe something like the CR805B that has a decent ammo pickup and decent damage, but you still have to kind of play it by ear and be a little careful with it. And even higher damage things like the Krinkov, maybe, if you put suppressor skills on it and stuff like that. But like I said, I primarily pair it with weapons that aren't good at busting up dozer faceplates for primaries if I need the concealment and I don't want to bring an explosive secondary, which brings us to the Arbiter and the China Puff, which are both incredible in their own right. The China Puff is, I don't even want to say subjectively, I think it might just objectively be the best grenade launcher out of all of the grenade launchers we have in the game. It's a secondary, you can get it to a pretty decent concealment, it reloads fast, has good ammo pickup as far as grenade launchers are concerned. It's awesome. If you've used the China Puff, you know how great it is. So I don't have much more to say there other than the China Puff is just amazing. The Arbiter is good in the sense that although it does a little over half the damage of the other grenade launchers, it doesn't have a projectile arc. It shoots in a straight line like a bullet, so you can take out snipers with it if you're using like a shotgun primary and you don't want to be completely unable to hit snipers with shotguns at far away distances. You can just use your Arbiter instead. It will take 2 shots to kill units on one down, like shields and so forth. I believe with 2 shots it should also kill. It'll be really close to killing the armored units, but I don't think it will, because the armored units have 1440 health, so it'll still be a few points away from, hit points away from killing them. But it has roughly the same pickup rate as the China Puff, but it also has magazine capacity of 5, and it reloads pretty quickly as well. So I've never brought the RPG, I know some people do, or the Commando rocket launcher for that matter. Maybe they could have a niche purpose, but I never bring them just because you can't pick up ammo with them, and so it's just kind of a waste of ammo in my opinion. Alright, I think that about covers it. So, what you want to think about when you're bringing weapons, to kind of sum up everything. When you're bringing weapons, I need to go over melee really quickly, but that won't take long. When you're thinking about the 2 weapons that you want to bring, you want something that you can use to kill things, clearly, but hear me out. You want something that you can use to kill standard units relatively quickly when you're in a pinch, but you also want something that you can use to deal with shields pretty effectively. For example, a sniper rifle and a micro Uzi. The sniper rifle I can use to shoot shields and other standard units. The micro Uzi I can use when I'm in a pinch, and I can use it to bust up dozer faceplates where the rate of fire of the contractor might be a little low. If I use something like a grenade launcher with a Bronco build, the grenade launcher is going to be able to take care of shields, while the Bronco is going to be my main killing tool for the standard units, and for, I could use either weapon to bust up a dozer faceplate to kill them. For something like the cavity and the locomotive, I use the locomotive as a stunning tool on enemies, but it also goes through shields, so it can take care of shields without me having to get behind them. And then the cavity is a useful, just flat-out killing tool for cleaning up enemies that aren't killed by the fire. And I use it to bust up the dozer faceplates because of its high rate of fire. So that's pretty much how my selections of weapons go. I always have some sort of utility weapon, and I always have a weapon that is designated as kind of the killing tool. I find that's usually the best way to go about it. However, you're obviously not restricted to that. You could just be a utility guy for your team. However, as I mostly do one down solo, or at least on my channel, I have to be both the killing guy and the utility guy, so I have to do all the coordination myself, which is fine. And so, yes. Now, talking about melee really quickly. There are free taser alternatives in the electric brass knuckles, which I would recommend, simply because the electric brass knuckles will stun enemies, prevent them from hitting you if they're in cover, allow you to get hostages really easily, and so on and so forth. There's not really a whole lot of reason to use any other melees unless they have a really high knockdown, something like the Alpha Mauler, perhaps. I forgot that's a special Alienware Alpha item. Oops. Even something like the Fire Axe or the Ding Dong Breaching Tool. Things that have really high knockdown that would have the chance to knock an enemy over so you could get them down on the ground and things of that nature. The other kind of utility melees, quote-unquote utility melees, are going to be the Buzzer, which will have the same effect as the electric brass knuckles, except they'll come out a bit faster. Let's see. 0.1, 0.7, and 1. Yeah, so the electric brass knuckles have slower cooldown between punches, which doesn't really matter for in the terms of like tasing enemies. Comes out like 1/10 of a second slower, so it's honestly not that big of a difference, practically the same. And then of course there is the kunai, which does poison damage over time, which is really good if you're trying to kill units with melee. Unless you put points into melee, you're probably not going to get, but I hate how it does this to me sometimes. It'll lock the Nova Shank community item because it won't like say that I'm in the community for whatever reason. It just does that on occasion. If I reload my game, it's fine, but that's fine. It's kind of strange that it does that. Whatever. Anyway. So yeah, things like that. Since melee has been unworked, reworked a million times, this one's probably going to change in the near future. It's also another thing to keep in mind as I'm talking about this is weapon balancing can and probably will change in the future. So that's, something to keep in mind. As far as throwables are concerned, I find concussion grenades the most useful because it allows me to push objectives. Incendiary grenades are a smaller radius but high damage version of the concussion grenade, so they're good for clearing out small clusters of enemies pretty quickly if you're needing to sit behind cover. HEF grenades, frag grenades, and dynamite are good for blowing things up. Not much else to it. Ace of Spades is primarily a stealth throwable. You can use it in one down loud, however, the fact that shurikens do poison over time damage make them kind of superior to Ace of Spades if you're trying to use them as a killing tool. Molotovs are great for area of denial, or for area effect damage and area denial. Javelins are pretty good at killing things. Well, javelins, throwing knives, and throwing axes are all really good at killing units. Usually throwing one of these into the head of any enemy unit will kill them. You get more throwing knives than you do javelins or throwing axes, but I'm pretty sure javelins do the most damage out of the two. If you get a crit on a dozer with one of these, I think you can kill them in one body shot, maybe two, I can't remember. Of course, the injector is tied with the Kingpin perk deck, so if you're using the Kingpin perk deck, you'll be restricted to only being able to use that if you want the perk deck to work as intended. Alright, I think that about sums it up for weapons, what you want to look for when you're bringing a weapon setup, and so on and so forth. In the next video, we're actually going to go into a heist, and we're going to talk about more specifically the kind of things I'm thinking about as I'm playing, things to keep in mind. We'll talk about decision making, so the next video will actually be about playing tips. This has all been set up, but all of this is really important when it comes to the playing part, because if you're not on an even playing field, if you're not prepared for one down, then all the tips in the world aren't going to matter. But in that same vein, you can have the best build in the world and the best weapons and all that good stuff, but if you don't know how to play it and you don't know the mentality to go to in, when you're like actually playing one down heists, you're just going to kind of smother and drown. So anyway, we'll talk about that next time. This was my 1-down tips video for weapons, kind of just a general overview. Thank you guys so much for watching.